Hi, good evening. My name is Father Rayappa. I want to compare Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si with the Mahatma Gandhi's uh, Indian village economics, that is Swadeshi, Swaraj, and Sarvodaya. Laudato Si encyclical exposes all the three uh, perspectives of Gandhian economics. Pope Francis again and again he talks about Swadeshi principle, Swaraj principle, and Sarvodaya principle, but without mentioning them. So I'm going to quote some of the writings from the encyclical to prove my argument. And the whole document is full of Mahatma Gandhian thinking of non-violence. Actually, Mahatma Gandhi proposed these three perspectives for Indian village economy. That is only for India. That is what Mahatma Gandhi was interested at that time. I'm talking about 1905. That is almost 120 years ago. So Mahatma Gandhi, he intended only for India. But Pope Francis is intending these three principles to the entire world, to international community. That is the progress. Actually, Mahatma Gandhi's small domestic principles now blown in a international package. So Pope Francis is reaching out to the whole world community. He wants all the 7 billion people on the planet today to look into the Mahatma Gandhian concept of Swadeshi, Swaraj, and Sarvodaya. So first of all, what is Swadeshi? That is what I'm going to talk about first, and then I'll explain what is Swadeshi, and then I'm going to quote a couple of paragraphs from the encyclical Laudato Si, which was written by Pope Francis in 2015 and was promulgated in the month of May, I think. So what is Swadeshi? Swadeshi simply means localism, or bioregionalism, or neighborliness. For example, I am a carpenter, I make window for you, and you are a farmer, and you make rice. So we exchange. So I give you window, and you give me rice. So the whole village economics, there were potters, there were barbers, there were cobblers, there were washermen. So all these people in village economics, I make something which you can't, and you make something which I cannot. But we complement each other. I give it my stuff to you, and I borrow your stuff. So it is limited to only that village. There is no export and import from other villages or other countries, nothing. We are self-sufficient there. So we don't exploit anything in the village economics. Only sustainably we take and we use the stuff, and we never abuse them. So Swadeshi is that spirit in us which restrict us to the use and service of our immediate surroundings, to the exclusion of the more remote, not remote people. Our main concern is our own surroundings. So by keeping our surroundings in good order, and we are keeping the whole international, even far away, in order. So our village progress is the progress of the world community, in other words. Thus, as per religion, so we can apply Swadeshi in every sector like religion, education, economic life. So in religion, In order to satisfy the requirements of the Swadeshi definition, I must restrict myself to my ancestral religion, that is Hinduism. So, absolutely, this is Mahatma Gandhi's vision because we feel one in mind and heart. We don't feel alienated because we believe in one system and one religion, and one faith can make us go for one action. We become one family. So that is the Swadeshi. So I must restrict myself to my ancestral religion. That is, the use of my immediate religious surrounding, my temples, my philosophy, my people, my customs, my culture, my liberation. If I find it defective, if my religion is not adequate, Mahatma Gandhi says that I should serve it by purging it of its defects. If you don't find something appealing, come on, why don't you make some amendment? Why don't you improve your own religion? Why don't you perfect it? So that is what Swadeshi is all about. But you apply the same thing in domain of politics. In politics, I should make use of the indigenous institutions and see them by curing them of their proved defects. In that of economics, I should use only things that are produced by my immediate neighbors and serve those industries by making them efficient and complete where they might be found wanting. So, industry means small scale industries, they are not big. Mahatma Gandhi, he doesn't recommend mass production, but he recommended production by masses, that is, with people's hands. You make things not by machines but human hands. So work was celebrated in Swadeshi economics. So Pope Francis, he reflects Swadeshi principles in number of paragraphs, but I'm going to quote couple of paragraphs as examples. So in paragraph number 179 in Laudato Si, Pope Francis writes as follows: in some places, cooperatives are being developed to exploit renewable sources of energy which ensure local self-sufficiency and even the sale of surplus energy. The simple example shows that while the existing world order proves powerless to assume its responsibilities, local individuals and groups can make a real difference. They are able to instill a great sense of responsibility, a strong sense of community, a readiness to protect others, a spirit of creativity, and a deep love for the land. They are also concerned about what they will eventually leave to their children and grandchildren. These values are deeply rooted in indigenous peoples because the enforcement of law is at times inadequate due to corruption. Public pressure has to be exerted in order to bring about decisive political action. Society, through non governmental organizations and intermediate groups, must be pressure on governments to develop more rigorous regulations, procedures, and controls. Unless citizens control political power, national, regional, and municipal, it will not be possible to control damage to the environment. Local legislation can be more effective too if agreements exist between neighboring communities to support the same environmental policies. That is paragraph number 179. I want to give you one more example. That is paragraph number 222 of Laudato Si. Pope Francis writes as follows: Christian spirituality proposes an alternative understanding of the quality of life and encourages a prophetic and contemplative lifestyle, one capable of deep enjoyment, free of the obsession with consumption. We need to take up an ancient lesson found in different religious traditions and also in the Bible. It is the conviction that less is more. Less is more. A constant flood of new consumer goods can baffle the heart and prevent us from cherishing each thing and each moment. To be serenely present to each reality, however small it may be, opens us to much greater horizons of understanding and personal fulfillment. Christian spirituality proposes a growth marked by moderation and the capacity to be happy with little. It is a return to that simplicity which allows us to stop and appreciate the small things, to be grateful for the opportunities which life affords us, to be spiritually detached from what we possess, and not to succumb to sadness for what we lack. This implies avoiding the dynamic of dominion and the mere accumulation of pleasures. Brilliantly written. Swadeshi principles are expounded to the core in these two paragraphs. So now I come to the second principle of Gandhian village economics, that is Swaraj. Swaraj simply means self-rule. And there are two types of ruling. One is inner rule and outer rule. So the inner rule is very important because outer rule depends on inner rule, how I rule myself. If I am ruled by anger and violence, the outer rule reflects the same anger, violence, and exploitation. If my inner rule is based on compassion, love, and kindness and empathy, the outer rule also will be reflecting empathy, kindness, and compassion. That is the basic explanation of Swaraj. So, in a way, the concept of Swaraj or self-rule was developed during the Indian freedom struggle by Mahatma Gandhi. In his book In Swaraj, which was written in 1909, Gandhi sought to clarify that the meaning behind Swaraj was much more than simply wanting systems of English rule without the Englishman, the tiger's nature, but not the tiger. The crux of his argument centered on the belief that the socio-spiritual underpinnings of British political, economic, bureaucratic, legal, military, and educational institutions were inherently unjust, exploitative, and alienating. As the writer Pinto explicates, the principal theme of In Swaraj is the moral inadequacy of Western civilization, especially its industrialism, as the model for free India. Gandhi was particularly critical of the deeply embedded principles of might is right and survival of the fittest. On another level, the call for Swaraj represents a genuine attempt to regain control of the self, our self-respect, self-responsibility, and capacities for self-realization from institutions of dehumanization. As Gandhi states, it is Swaraj when we learn to rule ourselves. The real goal of the freedom struggle was not only to secure political azadi. Azadi is independence, political independence from Britain, but rather to gain true Swaraj, that is, liberation of myself, and I can self rule. Pope Francis, in his encyclical Laudato Si, reflects the same Swaraj perspective in many of the paragraphs. So I want to quote one of the paragraphs where the Swaraj principle is celebrated in Laudato Si by Pope Francis. That is paragraph number 205. Pope writes as follows: Yet all is not lost. Human beings, while capable of the worst, are also capable of rising above themselves, choosing again what is good and making a new start, despite their mental and social conditioning. We are able to take an honest look at ourselves, to acknowledge our deep dissatisfaction, and to embark on new paths to authentic freedom. No system can completely suppress our openness to what is good, true, and beautiful, or our God given ability to respond to His grace at work deep in our hearts. Appeal to everyone throughout the world not to forget this dignity which is ours. No one has the right to take it from us. Such a brilliant writing, the paragraph number 205, which reflects the principles of Mahatma Gandhi's Swaraj. Finally, I'm going to talk about Sarvodaya. Sarvodaya simply means welfare of all, upliftment of all. So here we celebrate cosmic democracy or cosmocracy. And it is not anthropocentric, it is biocentric, cosmocentric, creation centered. It is about the common good of the whole universe. So that is Sarvodaya. Sarvodaya is a term meaning universal upliftment or progress of all. The term was first coined by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi as the title of his 1908 translation of John Ruskin's, the British writer John Ruskin's tract on political economy, Unto This Last. That is the name of that book, Unto This Last, written by John Ruskin. And Gandhi came to use the term for the ideal of his own political philosophy. Later, Gandhian, like the Indian non-violence activist Vinoba Bhave, embraced the term as the name for the social movement in post-independence India, which strove to ensure that self-determination and equality reached all strata of Indian society. Gandhi advanced the concept of Sarvodaya, which were based on three basic principles. Number one, that the good of the individual is contained in the good of all. That is Sarvodaya. Again, I'm stating number one principle, that the good of the individual is contained in the good of all. The second meaning of Sarvodaya, that a lawyer's work has the same value as the barber's, inasmuch as all have the same right of earning their livelihood from their work. I mean, a barber or a doctor or an engineer or a farmer or a carpenter or a washing man or woman, they all have equality of earning for their livelihood. The doctor, because of his profession, is not more qualified or better than the barber. Both are equal. So it is equity. So there is no discrimination at all. The barber's job and the cobbler's job is the same. The doctor is serving the community for the Sarvodaya upliftment of all, and so the barber, so the cobbler, so the farmer. They are all working for the upliftment of the universe, the progress of all, and the betterment of all. That is the second principle. The third principle of Sarvodaya, that is a life of labor. Everybody should have work. The life of the tiller of the soil and the handicraftsman is the life worth living. So, whatever you do it with full enthusiasm and with love. And there is no shame. You be a cobbler, there is no shame there. There is only dignity and self-esteem. So, nobody can really denounce you for what you are or what you are doing. No. Actually, for what you are, what you are doing, that is your self-esteem. That is your respect. That is your value. That is your dignity. That is your gift. So, this is the third principle of Sarvodaya. So, here what we see is Sarvodaya principle is not only anthropocentric. It's not only human-centered alone. It extends to other domains like animals and plants. And humans should flourish. So animals should flourish. So vegetation should flourish. At last Panjabhutas also should be preserved and they should be flourishing. At last the whole cosmos works for the common good. From the microscopic bacteria to all the way to black holes, or from the microscopic bacteria all the way to human beings, everybody should be working for the common good, not for self-interest. That is Sarvodaya. Pope Francis is writing in a couple of paragraphs, so I'm going to quote two examples from Laudato Si, the encyclical written by Pope Francis in 2015. Here is paragraph number 228. Care for nature is part of a lifestyle which includes the capacity for living together and communion. Jesus reminded us that we have God as our common Father and that this makes us brothers and sisters. Fraternal love can only be gratuitous. It can never be a means of repaying others for what they have done or will do for us. That is why it is possible to love our enemies. The same gratuitousness inspires us to love and accept the wind, the sun, and the clouds, even though we cannot control them. In this sense, we can speak of a universal fraternity. See, Pope using the word universal fraternity simply means Sarvodaya, upliftment of all. And we all come as brothers and sisters. There is no discrimination. We are one cosmic family. Today the new word is cosmocracy, where everybody has rights, not only human rights. There are frog rights, there is mosquito rights, dinosaur rights, snake rights, land rights, water rights. So every existence demands rights. That is universal fraternity, and yet we are related. I serve for you and you serve for me. One more paragraph I want to give as an example. That is paragraph number 229 of the Laudato Si. Pope writes as follows. We must regain the conviction that we need one another, that we have a shared responsibility for others and the world, and that being good and decent are worth it. We have had enough of immorality and the mockery of ethics, goodness, faith, and honesty. It is time to acknowledge that light-hearted superficiality has done us no good. When the foundations of social life are corroded, what ensures are battles over conflicting interests, new forms of violence and brutality, and obstacles to the growth of a genuine culture of care for the environment. So I think I try to explain the concepts of Swadeshi, Swaraj, Sarvodaya in the light of Laudato Si, Pope Francis's encyclical on ecology and environment. So, Gandhian thinking and Pope Francis's thinking is merging at last for the promotion of the common good in the international level. As I told you, it was intended for Indian village economy. So Gandhi was very domestic. He thought only for India in 1909, but now Francis is giving a remake up, and he is putting in his own words, and he is promoting all over the world, and he is recommending these three concepts to the international community. And I am very happy about it, and Mahatma Gandhi would be proud about it. May Mahatma Gandhi soul rest in peace. Bye.